On the road to Macstock with Kelly Guimont. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by the new MacVoices Discord, available to all of our MacVoices patrons. Sign up and join in the conversation in your new favorite online group at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, you thought we were done with the road to Macstock. Nah, not yet. Not yet. I'm not going to quite say that we're saving the best for last, but because then that means all the other presenters will try to chase me down the halls at Macstock. So let's just say that Kelly Guimont is here, and I'm delighted to have her. Kelly, it's great to see you.
It's so great to be here, Chuck. I've always enjoyed getting to chat with you.
Well, I'm excited too, because not only are we chatting now, but in about a week and a half, we will actually get to see each other at Macstock in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
Yeah, I hope you're prepared. There will be a lot of hugging. So, just sort of, I don't know if you need light calisthenics or something, but everyone that I've spoken to that's going has been very, very excited and super looking forward to in-person time with everybody. So, there's an excellent chance of lots of hugging. So, light calisthenics, for the next week is probably a good idea.
And, I think it's very interesting because in a world that has gone so much virtual, we have so many more opportunities, which are terrific because it does still give some face-to-face interaction. There's still something that is so terrific about being face-to-face in an intentional environment. Not just, oh, hey, we got to show up, but we're there to see each other, to listen to the talks, and to learn from each other.
Yeah, and that the hallway track bit is really important, and I think it sort of gets lost because it's the thing that people say when they want to force a return to office is sort of that kind of that hallway track vibe. But at conferences, that's the thing that really does make the difference. Is getting to all the seats are taken, so you sit down at a table with some people that maybe you haven't had a chance to talk to or don't normally get to speak with, and start having a conversation and learn something really interesting about somebody, or find out you have a lot in common with someone that maybe you didn't think you did. Or, a couple of times when I've been at conferences, I've gotten an opportunity to get some time with a presenter of a session that I went to and was able to ask some follow-up questions and really get more out of the conference experience, kind of, that's one of the things that I love. And also, the thing about Macstock is that it's not massive, it's not Macworld sized. And I love that, everybody there sort of, I don't think anyone who's going to be there is going to not know anybody, they may not be very close friends or anything like that, but everybody sort of knows each other after a fashion, and that's the other thing about it that I really like, is that it's just sort of getting to go hang out with a bunch of your friends that you don't normally get to see. So that part is always super fun. Yeah,
but even if you don't know anybody, 5 minutes in, you're going to know somebody, because that's just it. We're getting late into the game here, so we're probably a little bit have a narrow audience, unless you can book a late flight. But if you're in the Chicago area and you are still on the bubble about come. It doesn't matter if you know anybody or not. Again, we're all there, super welcoming, super friendly, and super informative too. So this just punches all the critical buttons.
Yeah. So. Plus, when I get there, I'm coming in on Friday, and I'm flying into Chicago, and I will need a ride. So if anybody's going, and I don't want to have to spend an hour sitting on a train or something, then that would be awesome. The thing about it is that it's two of my favorite things at the same time. It's everybody getting to hang out together and just sort of generally enjoying people's company, and then also a bunch of really smart people are going to come talk about stuff that is really, really cool. And the thing that's really great about seeing stuff at Macstock is that it's always things that people are passionate about, things people care about, something that's important to them in some way. And even if I don't understand it, even if I can't always keep up, it doesn't matter, because I will happily spend lots of time listening to people who are passionate about the thing that they're telling me. It's one of my favorite things to do, even if I have no idea anything about it. if you're super into it and you want to tell me about the thing that you are super into, I'm 100% here for it. And it really makes me happy to do it.
You're the second presenter that we've talked to that has brought up the word passion. And I think that defines the Macstock audience. Because once again, we are all there not because anybody has to be, because we all want to be. And we want to be for the people, but also to learn. We're going to be learning from you, though, because you are a speaker this year. You know the rules. We don't want you to give the presentation here. We just want you to talk about what you're going to be talking about. So what are you bringing to the table for this year's Macstock?
It's going to be how to level up your attention. And I'm going to sound purposely vague, and I'm not giving my presentation ahead of time because there's a thing that's going to happen during my presentation that I am super excited about. It involved cahoots, several sets of cahoots with Mike Potter to make sure that we could pull this off. And what I'm talking about is occasionally, we've had the wave recently, like in the last while, we'll say, because time is weird, of like fidget spinners and things, and talking about how people can focus and how people can pay attention and how people can function better. And there's been a lot of other sorts of fallout from pandemic and from a lot of people suddenly being remote workers who maybe didn't have that tool belt ahead of time and things like that, and how to get things done. And, lots of people who, when all of the structure in their world sort of collapsed, didn't know how to manage without any of the external structure. And so there's been an uptick in lots of kinds of mental diagnoses, all kinds of, neurodivergence, and all kinds of other sorts of things that kind of came to light because a lot of people's fundamental circumstances changed. And that also means that you spend a lot of time sitting in meetings, sort of like you and I are now, sitting on a video call and trying to stay focused and engaged and pay attention. And for a lot of people, for a lot of reasons, it can be really hard to do that. And we've all sort of seen people doodling or playing with a fidget spinner or something like that during meetings or during presentations. And for some people, there is science behind that being a good idea. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how there are ways that you can pay attention, even though, like you see somebody doodling and you think maybe they're not necessarily as engaged because they're doodling something. There's science behind that actually being something that can help because it sort of engages the part of your brain that is the easiest to distract. And then allows you to sort of retain better. And, maybe part of the doodling is taking notes. That's where the sketch note movement sort of comes from, is like you're doodling, but you're also doodling things that are about what you're hearing so that it helps cement that stuff in your brain. So I'm talking about that. And I have some practical demonstrations of what it is like to level up your brain power and memory. And it's not necessarily about being able to walk away from the meeting you were in or the presentation you just saw and recite 100% of everything word for word. It's not about that. It's about, I know I wrote that down so that I could find it later, so I have something to reference. A week from now, a month from now, a year from now, when I'm trying to remember, I know I heard Chuck talk about that thing that time, and I want to remember what that was. And I know that I wrote it down so I can go back to my notes and find the thing that I'm looking for. And just being able to have more of the recall of like, I know I've heard it. I know I've read it. I know I've encountered it at some point, and being able to get back to that so that you have the information that you need when you need it.
I'm trying to resist the urge to ask you a bunch of questions because this really intrigues me. But
but I can't guarantee I will give you a satisfactory answer before my presentation.
Well, and and I'm not going to push it, but I have to tell you that during your explanation there, do you remember the Daily Source Code with Adam Curry?
Yeah.
I distinctly remember an episode where he talked about driving and listening to something on the radio and having it associated with what he was passing. And the number of times that has happened to me where two completely unrelated items kind of get combined in your head, so that when you go somewhere and maybe you don't go there often and you pass that, it's like, oh yeah, and I remember this. And so I have the feeling that you're somewhere on that track. And but I'm going to go this far, okay? And shoot me down if I'm going too far. But you're going to be talking about how to remember this stuff. Are you going to be then marrying that up with note-taking tips or sketchnoting tips, or is this just a completely more abstract kind of thing?
There will be tips, and it will be about sort of recall and engagement, and to get to your example with Adam Curry. This is the kind of thing that people always talk about, having good ideas in the shower, or something happened while I was driving, or I was making dinner and all of a sudden had this great idea. It's because there's that low-level part of your brain that's really easy to distract, that's sort of keeping watch for everything, and you've engaged that. So you're in the shower, washing your hair, which, for me is an entire project. So I don't usually have good ideas when I'm washing my hair, but other people might. Like, generally, you're doing something else and it's sort of engaged a low level of your brain, and that frees up the rest of your brain to kind of roam. And then that's sometimes where good ideas come from. Like driving in the car and noticing the thing that you pass. Like a thing that I have a lot is I have songs that I remember. Like, I was hearing a song on the radio and it reminds me of going by that place that time, because there was some moment, some notable thing that happened, at that moment. And so that place always reminds me of that song, or I listen to that song and it always reminds me of that place because of the thing that happened there. And this is the same sort of thing. Like your brain will burn neural pathways however it can when the moment presents itself. So this is just a little bit more about trying to take advantage of that moment and make it something that is that is useful to you, and give you a better grasp on that information so that you can do something interesting with it when you're done. So, I want to be able to present like the science of doing this to people, give people examples of how to do it, and then later find out, like, this is how I've taken this forward. Like, now that I'm home from Macstock, I've been doing this other thing differently now when I sit in meetings, and guess what? Like, I remember a lot more stuff, or my notes are better because when I do write something down, I do know that I know it's important. I know it's a thing that was important, or I'm doing better at recalling that I wrote it down, that kind of thing. So, because really the important thing, and this is a thing I think also gets lost, especially like in technology, where a lot of things are really competitive and people really, there's a whole lot of one-upsmanship in a lot of it, is, the thing is not being able to carry all that knowledge around in your head. It's sort of being able to carry around that index of that knowledge, being able to get your hands on the information that you need when you need it, is the skill a lot of people need and haven't necessarily cultivated, because we all think we're all just supposed to walk around with it in our brains, 100% of everything we always have known forever, all the time, as opposed to being able to write something down and know that I have a system I can go back to, and be able to go, I wrote that down. I know I wrote that down. Let me go find it. And then being able to retrieve it, because that piece, like, there's so much more in the world now that nobody can carry it all around in their brains anymore.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, and that's it, because I don't want to step on the presentation, but it's something you've constantly mentioned here. Does the approach that you're going to demonstrate, deliver, is it just for literally writing things down, or with an Apple Pencil, or just a regular pen and paper, or can this apply to me taking notes via keyboard as well?
This will, well, yes and no. This applies to it applies to cementing the information in your brain better, and then whatever you write down. This part isn't secret, and this isn't a thing I'm going to spend a bunch of time talking about, but if you use a pencil, whether it's from Apple or not, if you use a writing utensil and scribble on a page as opposed to typing, the writing cements it in your brain a little better. there's been a lot of studies around the science of this, and I am not a scientist, so I'm not the person to ask about it. But I know that if I write a thing down, I remember it much better than if I typed it. I'm much faster at typing things, and so I'm very good at getting all that stuff in there, and my computer knows how to search it for me. If I know this was the word I was looking for, I can go get my computer to find all the instances of that, and that's great. But if it's a thing that I need to make sure is something that is somehow carried around in my head all the time, it's always something that I've written down instead of typed. So we'll talk a little bit about, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then a little bit more about other things that you can do to engage your brain in ways to make presentations and lectures and meetings and all that kind of stuff more useful. Because another thing that I do a lot at work these days, to go back to the beginning of our conversation, is online things. There's a lot more potential for, WWDC, for example, is 100% online. And being able to sit in those presentations and look and get better information out of, I'm sitting in front of my computer watching a video, and lots of other companies, like, I'm in IT. And so I have lots of opportunities to watch webinars and listen to a couple people in a couple of boxes on my computer tell me about a thing that I need to know about that's relevant to my interests, that I signed up for to purposely be here and try to get information from. And in order to do that, there are times you can just sort of let it wash over you, and maybe it doesn't matter quite so much, but there's times when you really need to be involved and more invested in what's being presented. And I have some good ways to help make that happen.
This sounds really intriguing. And thank you for answering that. Because I tend,
I hope it was actually
well, it was, because I've never looked at the science of it, but I found that to be true. My notes are more thorough if I type them in, but I do seem to be able to recall better if I'm writing them. Or my biggest trouble is then I have to go back and read my own writing, and that's a challenge. But that's not part of the presentation. So penmanship is not part of Kelly's presentation.
Yeah, I can't help you with that. I had a grade school teacher for a mom, so I was not allowed to have handwriting. So yeah,
and I was a left-hander that they tried to make a right-hander, so I have.
Oh, same. Yeah.
So, but anyway,
yeah.
So one thing we want to make sure we let people know, and I hope you have it, Kelly, because we didn't talk about it ahead of time. Mike has been kind enough to give us all discount codes, the speakers' discount codes, and I want to make sure we get yours out there. So if you're going to come to Macstock and still haven't registered, now's the time. Kelly, what's your code?
My code, and I want to make sure that I have exactly the right one. Let me see if I have the one that I have. I am 90% sure this is it. And if this isn't it, then I'll just talk to Mike and make sure that it is, because this is what it was last time. And that's Verso, which is my social media handle most places, VERSO.
Great. So, and for any reason, if you have any doubt, check the show notes, because by the time you see this, I will have conferred with Kelly and Mike to make sure that's correct. But Kelly's code is Verso. Mine is MacVoices. Don't care which one you use either one. Use any of the codes for any of the speakers that we've had here, or don't use a code. I don't care. But that will give you $30 off either the 2-day package for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Excuse me, the 3-day package, either Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or the 2-day package for Saturday and Sunday. Sorry, there are multiple codes and you can't stack them, so you have to pick one. But it'll save you a little bit of money to join us in Crystal Lake, Illinois for Macstock. Kelly's going to be there. I'm going to be there. All the people we've talked to on the road to Macstock will be there, plus a lot more of our friends. We want you there. Whether we know you or not, you will be our friend by the end of the weekend. I think that's fair to say, Kelly, don't you?
That's absolutely fair to say. Yeah. It's one of my favorite things about Macstock. I love getting to meet people, and I know it's always interesting to me to get to find people like that listen to us, as we chit chat here, and get to have an in-person interaction with somebody. So it always makes me happy when people come up and say, "Oh yeah, I heard you on that thing that time, and and you were great," or "I totally disagree with you," because that's also fun. I kind of want to know when people don't necessarily think the same thing I do. So it's always fun to have that conversation as well. So yeah,
that's a good point that we have not made that. This is not necessarily an echo chamber where everyone agrees with everyone. But But it means that you can come and feel free to disagree and have good, intelligent, well-reasoned, civil conversations about those disagreements, as opposed to, knock down, drag out fistfights or something, or some of the things we're seeing in the political world right now. It's just such a welcoming atmosphere, and I hesitate to say intellectual because that sounds a little snobby, but it's the good parts of an intellectual exchange would be maybe the best way I could express it.
Yeah. Well, it's always well informed because a lot of people are coming from, it's Macstock. We're coming from a technology baseline. So it's more, a lot of people have maybe a specific thing about, well, I use my phone this way. And the way that you talked about it seems like that doesn't work, but that's what I do. And I didn't know you could do that. This is the thing that one of my favorite things about Macstock is, people will do something with your phone. You go, whoa, what did you do just there? That was really cool. There's all kinds of stuff that I'm trying to remember over at Mac Observer, we used to always talk about, I don't know what you don't know. I know what I know. And so repeating things like, here's a pro tip about I do this on MacVoices too. Did you know if you blah the blah, then magic? Because a lot of times we forget too, there's so many, our devices are so capable of doing so many different things. Unless you do it all the time, you kind of forget that was a thing that was cool. And it just sort of slips your mind because you didn't write it down. And so now you don't know. Now you don't know. And so it's one of those things that I also really like about Macstock. And, everybody's coming from something technological for the most part. So there's a lot of informed that comes with ours. It's not, I heard somebody say one time in front of me at the grocery store that iPhones, blah, blah, that's not what's happening. People come and are informed about the things that they're wanting to ask you. And they know the thing that they are asking you, or they know that they don't know. And I'm coming and asking you this thing because I want to know, or I want to talk to you about this thing because I want to know more about that. And I know that you've talked about it a lot. So I want to see what your take is. That kind of stuff is always really, really awesome.
I love the way you brought it back to writing it down, Kelly. That was very smooth. It was really very smooth.
I didn't mean to, and then there I was and went, oh yeah, because you didn't write it down. There you go.
Perfect. Okay, folks, one more time. Macstock Conference and Expo.com is where you go to register. Join us in Crystal Lake, Illinois. We're going to have a ball. Kelly's code is Verso. Mine is MacVoices. Or just register and show up because we really, really want you there. Kelly, I will see you sometime Friday evening when you get in. And hey, we're going to have a great weekend.
I'm going to put a teaser on there aside from my talk. Saturday night is karaoke. And I'm responsible for that being a thing. So I guess technically we can call it Karaoke. It's totally happening. And Chuck is going to be there. And I don't know what else you need to know.
Let's be a little more specific. Chuck will be there. Chuck will not participate. Chuck will be an observer.
I wasn't going to say that, Chuck. Well, give the people what they want. No, make them show up and see if you're going to sing. No, you don't know.
No, there's no one listening to this show that wants to see me sing or hear me sing. No. You don't know what you're getting into, Kelly. You don't know what you're getting into.
Oh, I do. I have hosted karaoke for years and years here in Portland. I know exactly what I'm getting into.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
I'll see you at Macstock.
I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Folks, I'm excited too because I want to see you there. I will not be singing, but that's just Kelly's maybe disappointed, but there are places I will not go. With that, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We'll see you at Macstock, and if not, we'll see you next time on MacVoices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, Consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.